It all starts in the war against the Demon King 1,000 years ago on the day the demonic beasts crossed the front lines and attacked the humans. You're probably already thinking, oh, damn. Here comes another one of those cliché stories. I've seen this beginning like 16 times already. But hold on, my warrior. Take it easy. Humanity fought against the creatures for survival. However, the long and never-ending war continued. The ground kept being soaked in blood while the number of demonic beasts decreased until suddenly someone showed up riding the black dragon. That's when the legendary Mage appeared. Bro, he easily managed to wipe out the entire field, defeating all the demonic beasts. Just the majestic presence of the dragon alone already caused fear in all the beasts. Everyone on the battlefield worshipped the hero. But then, out of nowhere, he suddenly fell dead to the ground. The mage made a mysterious death at the same moment he won the war against the demons. The mage said he would be waiting for the one obsessed with strength, the one who wouldn't succumb to temptations or corruption. The scene then changes completely to the subway where people are watching a UFC match. It was the 17th fight of the world champion defending his title. Around the octagon, everyone was cheering and shouting for the challenger. In the blue left corner was some guy named Patrick the Challenger. 120 kilos of pure dry muscle like a bodybuilder, and everyone's yelling for him to kill. Meanwhile, in the right corner is the world champion with 37 fights and 37 wins. Someone who has never lost a single match to this day and is ripped at 5% body fat. 100 kilos of muscle, black hair with swag. The two are face to face. The announcer says that Jin-ho doesn't seem to be using his foot lately. And Patrick said in an interview that he must have an injured foot and that today is the day he loses. Everyone's starting to think that eventually Jin-ho has to lose. The guy's already 48 years old. There's no way he's going to keep winning forever. And with that, the bell rings to start the fight. Patrick didn't even move yet, and he's already frozen stiff. The presence of that bastard in front of him was terrifying. It was expected from the champion. But he already knows that guy's leg is injured. So he goes toward him to try a takedown and throw him to the ground. He dodges low to grab his legs, saying that this guy is arrogant for even coming to the ring injured. But the moment he's just about to touch the leg and is smiling because he thinks he got it. There's already a laser coming from the side. Bro, blood gushes in the arena and that's it. The fight is over, man. Patrick's all messed up over there. Jin-ho says that's why he wasn't using his leg. Otherwise, it'd be too easy. Damn, what a cocky guy. Sometime later, he puts on his coat, slams the locker shut, and is getting ready to leave. A man kind of joking, tells him to wait, saying there are people who want to interview him, that he should talk to fans and all that stuff. But Jin-ho just says to tell them to send a message. When his schedule is open, he's got better things to do. His friend says he needs to understand. It's pouring rain outside. Traffic is a disaster. Jin-ho says that's even better. He'll run and get there faster. Suddenly, he already slammed the door and the friend tries to leave saying it's 30 kilometers away. But the guy wasn't even there anymore. He vanished in front of everyone. And now it's the reporters who are annoying the coach, wanting to know how he created the legend. The protagonist goes back home while the coach thinks it's honestly going to be sad. He remembers the first time he saw this kid fight. He debuted by finishing the opponent with a punch. Next fight was an elbow. Most fights didn't last more than 30 seconds, and all the coaches can feel sadness. He's certain Jin-ho won't find anyone capable of facing him until the day he retires. And then he tells the reporters that the leg thing was just to make the fight harder. Sometime later, arriving at the apartment, he's soaking wet. 14th floor full of presents at the entrance from fans. And bro, the guy is the world champion, right? His place is a giant mansion. And it's in an apartment building. You get it. The guy made a mansion in the building. But what he loves the most is right there, man. It's a gamer PC. That's right, bro. Our UFC World Champion is a gaming addict, too. Not just any game, but one called Last Savior. A game so hard that most Korean users who usually like this kind of niche gave up. Jin-ho, however, has been playing it every single day for the past 10 years. He's been honing his skills and fighting stronger and stronger people and monsters. That's how he's been living his life. The protagonist smiles, saying he hopes he doesn't win today like always. There was his character Faye, on the battlefield. What he liked the most was the feeling of challenging a creature. And once again, he was going up against the Demon King, Ar. Some time passes and Jin-ho's expression changes. He was face to face with the Demon King, but the creature had almost no health left. He looks at the HP bar. He couldn't believe it. At this rate, he was going to win. He hits the Demon King, telling the bastard to defend himself properly. He tries an attack to the legs and wonders how he didn't dodge something so obvious. The poor NPC is trying to fight back, but it's tough. Jin-ho's blonde character is finishing him off while wondering why the patterns today were way too simple, because every single attack he was throwing was landing perfectly. He activates a lion's aura and a bunch of slashes appear on the Demon King. When he turned on the PC today, his intention was to challenge again, aiming for victory. But right now, he was scared of winning. He tells the Demon King to hold on and try something different, that he was going to win, that he wasn't going to lose today. Jin-ho was even bending his finger commands, trying somehow not to win this, but it was inevitable. In the end, he landed a slash that killed the Demon King. With that, he was congratulated for being the first person to kill Demon King Isekai'd. At that moment, Jin-ho's expression changed. He had become a champion in two completely different worlds. The mouse moves to the screen, and now he's angry at himself, wondering who he's going to fight now. Maybe he should go out running in this rain and look for a bear in the forest. But then, in the middle of the clouds, a golden light appears, and a strange lightning bolt strikes. When he feels something approaching and looks up, the lightning seems to have struck right into his apartment. The screen goes black and he feels a strange sense of vertigo while his whole body seems kind of numb. He looks up and sees the rain and wonders when he even left his house. But when he lowers his eyes, he sees he's wearing some weird orange pants. Suddenly, someone puts a hand on his shoulder and calls him by 218. A blonde girl with blue eyes says they don't have time for this. They need to escape from there right now. He shouldn't be standing there like an idiot. He's a bit confused and sees the number 172 on her shirt and instantly wonders where the hell he is. In front of him, there's a bunch more inmates trying to escape from a prison that looks more like a castle. Looking at one of the flags, he thinks he recognizes the eagle's pattern. But then 172 tells him to wake up to reality because this is the last chance they'll have to escape. If not now, they'll never get out of the butcher's prison. Look at the guy's face, man. And obviously, he already recognized the name Butcher's Prison. I already like the start of this story, right, bro? He's still kind of dazed while 172 pulls him. Next to them, a bunch of prisoners keep going by, pulling the gate in a tug of war. Jin-ho wanted to believe this was a dream, but at the same time, it felt way too real. He starts running beside the girl, trying to understand how he ended up inside the game he used to play until he decides to calm down and escape this place first and then worry about how to solve this mystery. But suddenly, he stops and tells 172 to pay attention. This was weird. This was supposed to be the most secure prison of all and everything was way too messed up. 172 says it's because Director Clark isn't there. Looks like he stepped out to deal with something and this is everyone's chance to escape. Jin-ho, however, suddenly grabs her by the collar and runs in the opposite direction. She tells him to let go, saying he's a maniac, but he was sure. This prison was way too secure for it to fall into chaos like this. And something told him that whoever went through that door wasn't going to live much longer. 172 is trying to resist, telling him to let go of her. And at that moment, the others manage to open the door and start celebrating, saying they're finally free. They're all going out while our boy takes her further inside the prison. But obviously, the smiles of the escapees disappeared really fast, bro out of nowhere, arms start flying, legs everywhere, and Director Clark is right in front of them all. The guy turns and says, "This place really is full of pathetic worms." He gives the order for them to be killed, and the troops storm in. 172 asks why he's there. While our boy says right away that this was clearly a trap. Now the criminals are all rushing back into the prison desperate bro. The walls were painted in blood. Sometime later, Clark tells them to gather the survivors. The line of criminals forms. Bro, only our protagonist and his friend are different there. She's right next to him almost throwing up. Actually, wow. She threw up in her hand. All of it. It would have been better to just vomit on the floor. And worst of all, for vomiting, she got punched for moving. Jin-ho is shocked that they're that violent, even with kids. No wonder riots happen there all the time. If something like that happens again, he's going to have to get involved in a fight. And then Clark shows up in front of him, like 78 tall, saying the kid is either really lucky or way too much of a coward to have tried escaping. But to him, that's typical. Every mage is like that. Nothing but a coward. Calling people like them rivals is disgusting. He gets in our protagonist's face and says that Aaron is going to regret surviving today. The guy leaves and the protagonist stares at his reflection wondering if he really was just called Aaron. A week later, a beautiful blue sky and our boy is working. They had to spend the whole day stacking rocks, but like not because there was a big reason, just so they wouldn't be idle and had something to do. Looking at his own hand, all busted up, our boy, who I don't even know what to call anymore, Kim Jin-ho 218, will figure it out later. But this same guy is complaining that just lifting a rock already makes him run out of breath. And this body is way too weak. Not to mention, they said he's a mage. But he tried to use magic and nothing happened. It seemed like a complete failure. But to him, it made no sense. Aaron should know how to use magic. That's because Aaron is the name of the most powerful mage family in that region. That's when it hits him. He was probably from that family, but was discarded for having no magical talent. Considering how cruel and sadistic that family is, that would make perfect sense. Then the guard tells him to take that rock over to the other side. The protagonist just obeys and carries the rock. He's looking forward to something specific. On the system window, it says that due to excessive data, synchronization is taking a while. The guy was so overpowered in real life. Yes, this guy is struggling to download his files. Yesterday and the next day, meal time or well, meal is a strong word. At the time of rock with water and bread, which also looks more like a rock. The protagonist complains he's been training hard, but with food like this, he won't build any muscle. Then 172 shows up and asks if he's not going to eat the bread again. He says no and tells her to take it. Now I'm confused. Jin-ho says this friend is peculiar. What do you mean it's a guy? No way. No. I think something's off. Probably. Kim Jin-ho is wondering why this person. And I'll just say person for now until I know if it's a guy or girl locked up in here being so young, and 172 tells him to be careful lately. It seems like because of our guy, everyone's workload increased and nobody's happy about it. Now it made sense to Jin-ho why so many people were staring at him in that place. And 172 tells him to be careful, especially with 589, the leader of the prisoners, who also has a notorious reputation in the arena. Jin-ho then says it's better not to talk to him since she might end up at risk, too. But 172 says she already knows everyone, so she can just ignore it. And our protagonist stands up, saying they're going to find out right now. A bunch of prisoners start approaching, and he says the situation she mentioned is about to happen. At that moment, 172 is startled when she sees the guy's number. Alright, bro. In theory, he's the leader of the prisoners, right? But honestly, I think he's the leader of the bald gang. So far, only our protagonist and that friend have hair. No way. That's a coincidence. And the leader says he heard the reason their workload increased was because of that kid. 218 just wants to know what he has to do with that. Well, I mean, it is your fault, right? You bastard. He's about to make up an excuse, but there's already a hand the size of his head in front of him, bro. It opened a crater in the ground, and 172 yelled out for our boy, but someone grabbed the leader by the neck. What's that, bro? You think Jin-ho is going to play around? He already lands a knee right in the guy's chin. His friend and the bald guys are all freaking out, calling out to the boss. And the protagonist's expression changes, right, man? He's not the same as before, and now his knee did absolutely nothing. 589 asks, what was that? And now our boy gets grabbed by the collar and is about to get the airplane spun, man. The guy was thrown against the wall like the protagonist in a couple's fight. Bro, his friend's right there scared, calling out to 218. But the boss says if he didn't die just now, he can rest assured he's marked for death. Wither boss, you better watch out because the synchronization just hit 100%. Bro, look at the villain's little grin. Finally, someone installed fiber optic in this cursed system that never loads. And the beatdown is about to begin. He's already getting back up, surrounded by that aura or with his fist full of blue energy. The kids are all driving balls now with those auras, doing that little hand flex and foot warm-up. Whoa, man. And he's already in an MMA stance, telling the guy to step into the ring. The boss laughs, saying, for someone abandoned by his own clan, he really thinks aloud himself. But Jin-ho just tells him to shut up already and come into the ring. The boss, tired of the talk, runs straight at him, bro. Our boy sees an opening in the leg and takes a low kick. But what? You thought it would be easy. The guy grabbed his foot, saying, the kid's going to learn a lesson now. But again, what? You thought it would be easy. Our boy pulled the Beyblade move, started spinning, and landed one right on the side of the head. The boss looked a little dazed, but before he could recover, bam, one more under the chin. Man, the guy just wanted to fall, but the kid wasn't about to stop there. Takes another solid kick and stumbles back. With that, the boss hit the ground out cold. And our guy is still being dramatic since that's why he doesn't like using his leg much. Suddenly, the whole prison's already pulling out their apple slicers heading toward our boy because you can't even call those sticks knives, right, man? But our dude stepped on the boss, pulled his arm, and warned. If they came any closer, this guy was going to need help eating for the rest of his life. With that, the bald heads all froze, not knowing what to say. Jin-ho stomped on the arm again and said he still saw a lot of people standing there. If they wanted to stop this, then call the guards. Right away, one of them takes off running, saying that when the guards come and free the boss, he's going to die. Apparently, in the end, all the guys surrendered and just carried the boss away. Sometime later in the cell 172 wants to know how he did that, saying it was way too amazing. Not to mention, the kid looked like he had grown taller out of nowhere. What happened? The protagonist says it was the result of hauling rocks back and forth. But obviously that was the result of sensing his real-life stats with the games. It's the first time the protagonist brings his real-life body because it's more overpowered than the one from the game. You feel me? Usually it's always the guy who has a trash body and ends up in an amazing one. And now what our boy is impressed with are the stats. Zed Arahan, full of S-rank immunities. Bro, Immortal Duelist, Challenger rank, S-rank Archmage, man. Grim has it all. What he finds strange is that his class is really Mage. And because of that, he has 50% or less agility, strength, and resistance. And even though he's in the mage class, he literally has 0 mana. In other words, he's losing half of his attributes for absolutely nothing. Not to mention that this makes no sense because he belongs to the Arahan family, which is full of geniuses. Meanwhile, 172 is just staring, wondering what this lunatic is rambling about, laughing to himself. There's no way the guy's lying on the bed, trying to figure out how it's possible he reincarnated into such a garbage body. But first, he needs to calm down and start considering his options. He's got that so-called growth penalty, which is what's cutting 50/50ths. But even then, it's still better than 0. Not to mention, physical strength is something he knows how to develop even better. The only obvious problem is that the food there is terrible and isn't helping at all. What he's curious to understand better is this whole pile of S-rank talents. If he had all that and could have mana, then he'd be completely busted. An archmage's blessing like that is for very few people. But it's all good. He's going to try to find a way to solve this no mana issue. There's got to be some solution right then. Suddenly, the guy from outside the cell starts calling out several numbers. Everyone called is forced to leave the cell. He asks, "What's going on?" And 172 says, "Those are the people in the death coup, bro. Basically, they'll have one last meal and then it's goodbye." He says he gets it, then asks the friend's name. To the sadness of some and the joy of others, the name is Ryu. So, yeah, he really is a friend. And our boy introduces himself as Zed Arahan. Aaron's a pretty ugly name. So, from now on, I'm calling him Zed. Because Zed is a badass. You feel me? Zed asks Ryu if he's going to be in prison long, who says he'll be escaping soon. Protagonist wants to know how. He says it's simple. The guard up front has a key. Zed thinks he's going to steal it, but Ryu says it's impossible. The guy may be retired, but he's a 5-circle knight. Director Clark is the epitome of a knight who hates mages. That's because in the world of Last Savior, knights and mages hate each other. And now Zed's wondering how he's going to escape this place that's guarded by a 5-circle person. Weird. This is the first time I've seen circles used for someone who doesn't use magic. Then Ryu says it's not that hard. You just have to steal it without him noticing. For someone who came from the streets, that's easy. The only problem is that Clark's very attentive. So far, he hasn't seen a single opportunity. Zed smiles and says now he really sees a way to escape this place. The next day, work is about to start again, and one of the guards announces that by orders of the boss, they'll have to carry even more rocks today. The people are complaining, saying, it's not going to work. Soon, everyone's going to die. The guard puts a sword to someone's neck, and one of the bald guys says he just wants to know why they're pushing them so hard. There's no reason for this. The guard looks to the side and says they should already know whose fault it is. Obviously, everyone stares at Zed. And then the guard coughs and says he'll be back in a few minutes. 172 warns him that clearly they're setting him up for the others to jump him. Oh yeah, our protagonist already noticed that these knights who follow the code of honor are acting very differently than they should. While Ryu is off running, he's not getting involved in this, but it looks like he's got some kind of plan because he says he's not going to let Zed die. Obviously, all the inmates are coming to the same conclusion. To make the work easier, they're going to have to kill Zed. The protagonist smiles and says it really is an unavoidable situation. All the thugs rush toward him, saying he's way too confident. But as soon as the first one comes in, Bam hits Welcome with a knee to the chin. Bowling ball drops to the floor, and everyone's scared now, wondering who's going to be the next crazy one to charge in. But Zen just says for them to all come at him at once already. And there goes the crew again. But the first one that comes is again met with a hammer blow to the head while he's throwing elbows and smashing. Zed is pissed that these bastards keep coming one by one and then another instead of just attacking him altogether. Another one falls to the ground and he says, these guys are really lacking aggression. And just as he notices something, he ducks just in time and dodges an attack. Another knee and more headbutts, punches. It's a full-on brawl everywhere. And from a distance, Ryu was watching all this. The boy was leaving a trail of bodies on the ground. He had no idea Zed was this strong. But right at that moment, someone next to him calls out to Ryu and tells him to come along. Meanwhile, Zed is already kicking guys in the stomach. As always, they pull out those 3 cm knives, which I mean are big enough, impressive, even. At least that's what she said. But Zed already lands one on the next guy's face, telling him again to come at him with everything. And obviously, at that point, he was having fun. The guy fought his whole life. So, if there's one thing he likes, it's having his life on the line. There's nothing better than dodging an attack that could have killed you. That adrenaline was what got him so addicted both to that game and to martial arts. He hits one more in the chin, another in the back of the neck while going crazy, bro. Clearly not right in the head, obviously, until someone steps on his back and calls out for the damn Zed Arahan. Imagine Bu grabs the cracked out albino kid Bu and tells him that if he doesn't stop, his friend's going to die. Obviously, yeah, Ryu had been captured. But our boy just smiles and says they made a huge mistake. Ryu was trying to break free, biting and everything. And the crack kid Bu says the kid's going to die to a 2-circle knight, so it's not that shameful. He jumps in to attack, but obviously Zed dodges it with ease. The guy looks like he doesn't even know what just happened, saying Zed disappeared. And when he looks to the side, there they are already chatting calmly. Kid Bu wants to know what just happened, what kind of magic he used. Our guy says, wasn't magic, bro. A movement of skin starts to approach. Looks like a ballerina, but lands a perfect hit to the neck. The poor guy got dragged across the floor. But right then, Clark shows up calling for number 218, saying he's going to have to explain himself. But someone speaks up and says 218 was the victim. It's Ryu who explains that he had been taken hostage and it was Zed who saved him. Clark looks at the pile of guys knocked out on the floor and he seems pissed that these guys only ever get beat up. He then says he wants to ask Zed something. He wants to know if somehow he's been using mana. Kind of uninterested, Zed says maybe. But then Clark activates his aura. The prisoners on the ground get up just to say they can't breathe. While Ryu, who was still standing, drops to the floor. Now that makes sense. But through all that, bro, our guy is just standing there untouched inside a mana barrier. It was one of the his rank traits, resistance to suppression. He finally figured it out. It was a mental immunity ability. The guy is so full of himself, he says it all makes sense. He reached the pinnacle of Earth, won 27 fights in a row at the top of the world. There's no way some mediocre person from a world like this would ever scare him. Clark, however, didn't like seeing the kid still standing. He's losing his mind. He wants to know how the hell a bastard with no mana is still resisting this. The guy even pulls more of the aura and starts pushing harder anymore, and he'd probably crap his pants for sure. But strength suppression resistance is absolute, man. And with his hand on his waist, he's totally chilling. Clark's expression changes. He can't even understand how this is possible. The rest of the guards are begging him to stop, saying, at this rate, everyone there is going to die. Suddenly, Clark deactivates his aura. Staring at Zed, he says it's best he try to calm down. Otherwise, at any moment, he's going to cut his throat. He gives the boy one last stare and turns away, telling everyone to get back to work. But, man, Zed tells him to wait a second and says he's got something to say. He says he's tired of doing that idiotic rock stacking thing, and he's more than fed up with this bunch of prisoners attacking him. And that's why he's planning to end it all. Ryu asks what this lunatic is talking about, to which Zen replies he wants to join the death row, bro. Clark questions whether he has any idea what he's saying. It's not something he can just change his mind about later. Barb Boy says Clark can even record it in a crystal ball if he wants. He's not backing down. Clark says perfect then and tells someone to bring a registration item. Right away Ed says that now that he's on death row, he wants to request his last meal. He wants a birdie steak, a big enough portion to fill his belly. Looks like that's something really expensive because the guards' faces say it all, bro. They say it's madness. Obviously, the top quality steak is prepared only in the Southern Empire. In the game, it was one of the rarest foods you could consume. Delicious enough to restore even strength lost to age. Some people even ate it in the middle of battle to buff themselves and win the fight. Man, our boy, though, seems to be planning to stockpile it. I don't get it. Let's see what he's up to. He tells Clark that considering the family he's from and the cost of his life, it's a fair request. Besides, he warns that he knows what the real thing is like, so if they try to trick him, the whole deal will be voided. Rue wants to know why the hell this lunatic is trying to die. Then Zed says he'd forgotten about his friend. The two of them are on death row now. The staff hesitates, but Clark interrupts and says to follow orders since it's the life of an Aaron, it's worth it. Our girl thanks them while obviously Ryu is freaking out, wanting to know why he is dragged into this. Next scene, he's in his room getting ready. Apparently just finding that steak takes over a week. Our boy is using this time to keep training. Ryu, on the other hand, thinks it makes no sense. He's going to die anyway, so why bother exercising? Zed then reveals a special little system. 100 is the max number for any attribute, and all remaining experience gets funneled into the one that hasn't been leveled yet. And since he has 100 in every other attribute, obviously, all the experience he earns goes into mana. Right in the middle of this, a guard shows up calling for the two of them. And Zed already celebrates, saying, it's finally here. The meal, the extremely rare steak, is being prepared. As soon as Yuka the beef takes a bite, he cries with emotion, saying he's never eaten anything so good in his life. To which Zed says, don't forget that's thanks to me. Some of our guy's negative status effects are being partially erased. He can feel like part of the experience that was blocked is finally entering his body. Meanwhile, someone enters Clark's room and says the banquet has begun. He celebrates and orders no one to approach the two of them. While wondering what the hell happened that day, the boy didn't resist. And yet, Clark felt something strange. It was like his magic didn't resonate. Even though he's retired, he's still a five-circle knight. A young mage with no mana should not be able to do something like that. Something terrible must have happened that day. But today, he's sure he'll get the information he needs. Looking at the bracelet, he's sure the humiliation will be hundreds of times worse. Sometime later, the banquet is over, and the two of them are stuffed. Reeve says he's ready to die. But our boy says, unfortunately, he's not. Nav's body was full of energy and strength, the same feeling he had when he spent the whole day punching the sandbag. The door opens and he turns around saying that they finally arrived. Already asking Clark what he plans to do now that they've eaten everything. Clark starts to say something, but our boy tells him to wipe off that sad smile. He should be disappointed. There wasn't even a little bit left. Clark though is just getting more and more pissed, saying that this bastard thinks too highly of himself just because of his bloodline. But it's all good. He puts a hand on his shoulder, thinking it's fine. He'll make the boy succumb to agony today. Clark wants to take advantage of having someone from the Arahan family there to extract information. Any detail about how that family works is worth good money. He then activates the power of the bracelet, and Zed notices it instantly. That man is a magical tool. Clark asks what he's thinking about that sensation, but of course, Zed is just standing there completely fine. Ryu is nearly fainting and collapses to the side. Then Zed tells Clark he should behave a little better. Clark loses it and goes in with both hands on Zed's shoulders, but nothing happens. Zed just gives his hand a little pat. And now, apparently, the fight is about to start because he tells Clark that he warned him to take it easy. If he wanted to kill someone, he should have done it the proper way and not just keep whining. Clark though was all twisted up, not understanding why his magical tool isn't working. That would only be possible if the kid had a magical circle above him. But at his age, there is no way. That doesn't make sense at all. Which only leaves one other option. He must have some kind of bloodline from the errands that cancels out powers. Clark man, to get to the fifth circle, he had to train and practice hard his whole life. But even a failed mage, discarded by the family, can resist this artifact. Suddenly, the item shuts off and Zed asks if he's finally going to stop with this nonsense. Apparently, Clark gives up on threatening him and just lowers his head, saying that he can resist all he wants. Now that the decree has come down from the Majesty, he'll be executed tomorrow morning. He should enjoy his last night in this world. Sometime later, in his room, he's making some notes. Even though he couldn't learn much, he's writing it all down. The problem is that he's dozing off exhausted. His mana was used to the limit to activate that artifact. He wants to finish the report, but the pen slips from his hand. A while later, Ryu wakes up in the room, and Zed wants to know if he's finally getting up. He tells him to stop complaining, even if he feels nauseous or like throwing up. But our boy compliments him, saying he really does have fast hands. Man, I wasn't going to say anything, but I felt that moment when he leaned forward to fall. It was suspicious. I thought he's sitting down and falling forward. Got up just to fall again. Weird, right? But now there's the reason, man. Our boy praises him, saying he did a good job. For anyone else, it would have been insane, but he was really quiet and sneaky. Ryu says it only worked because Zed distracted Clark and he wants to know if he's really okay after all that. Our boy says he is, and then Ryu says there's definitely something shady about him. At that moment, Zed decides to ignore that and check his status. Mana is still at 0, but now everything else went down to -40, meaning he's a bit stronger. That stack made a difference. His body is becoming more and more comfortable to inhabit, and you can't even imagine how good it'll feel with 100% stats. Then he tells his friend they're going to have to escape tonight. So, if he's recovered, it's time. Ryu says this is madness. Clark is going to notice him showing up any second now. But our guy, obviously aware, says not to worry. He's probably sleeping. Ryu is curious, but the reason is obvious, right, folks? That bracelet Clark used pulls an absurd amount of mana from the body, but it causes exhaustion right after. And since Zed saw the item shut off earlier, he knows the guy is asleep. All thanks to the fact that he was taken to that room. And this guy walks around with the keys. The plan was easy. The time to leave had come and the two of them get up. Ryu was hesitant, but our boy says the hard part is already over. He kicks the bars and they fall right down. Bro, it's not like a few bits of metal were going to stop him. Obviously on the outside, the first guards already react wanting to know what he thinks he's doing. To which Zed replies, "Isn't it obvious, bro? I'm escaping this place." Didn't even see what hit them, and the two are already outside running through the yard. But turns out those damn organized guards are already lined up at the gate. Oh, poor guys who showed up to stop him, man. Just look at the guy in the middle. Bro, you've got zero chance. The guards shoot at Zed to stop, but Zed just rushes forward, scaring Ryu. The first guy in the way looks like he's got 6 kids Zed's age. He runs past, dodging easily, then plants a hand right in the guy's face, slamming one guard into another, like bowling with dudes. Poor guards are already all laid out, bent and twisted. Before the second one could react, bam, a hit straight to the jugular. A clean tap that knocked the air right out of him. Z keeps moving in from the right. And now the rest were basically getting eaten alive. He kicks the first guy he threw while the ones behind are more focused on defending than attacking. Some fool tries a sword swing, but Zed ducks under it and lands a heel kick straight in the guy's ribs. The guy practically fell on his feet. Zed even blocked the next sword swing with a hand on the ground. Another kick. Man, this dude is the king of Taekwondo. Another fool went face first into the dirt and two more poor souls came from behind. And look at the psycho's face. Ha! Enjoying himself like always. I don't even know what he did, but he landed a kick on one guy that knocked him into the other. Meanwhile, Ryu can't even believe what he's seeing. Sometime later, just looking at Clark's face now, totally dumbfounded, realizes he fell asleep at the worst possible time. His guys are all wrecked on the ground, begging for forgiveness. Unfortunately, number 218 had escaped. Obviously, he gives the order immediately to start the hunt, but the scene shifts to a hotel in a village near the detention center. Ryu is looking around, checking if anyone's coming. Obviously, he and our boys stand out a lot in those orange uniforms. At least Ryu knows the whole area, so he starts showing Zed around and explaining how things work. First thing they needed to do was blend in better with the locals. So, they hit up a beggar's stash to steal his clothes, bros saying that was the best way to hide. Ryu says he'll go grab some food. And our boy asks how since they don't have any money. But the little thief is a femme, right, bro? He's going to steal it easily. And he even tells Zed to just wait there like a side character. He'll be right back. 1 or 2 hours later, our boy has a different colored eye. That's because the thief even brought him a contact lens. They're in the southern region where people adore the old hero and that's why blue eyes are kind of a trendy item. Our boy guesses it might be because of the clan that the main character Torres Barrow belonged to. That was the Sword X family and their enemies obviously were the arrow hands just like they hated each other and were opposites. Even the eye color was different and obviously for that reason he couldn't go around flashing those glowing red eyes. Sometime later, they're in a cabin in the forest. It's kind of like the beginning after the end where the protagonist gets lost in the forest with the elf girl. Except here, in this case, it's with the femme instead. And only now is reality starting to hit Zed. He's wondering how the hell he ended up inside a game. And what kind of situation is this where now he has to sleep in a stable? But the madman says that at least life is fun. What Zed really wants to know was why this crazy guy Rio is always glued to him. Also, it seemed like the guy kept calling him a side character, which didn't make any sense. He still needs help, so he'll keep Rio close for now, but he needs to be careful. He doesn't know him well yet. He doesn't know how long he can trust this person. Thanks, man. Our boy's all lonely, huh? Though, it does make sense, right? He was 40 years old, spent all of his time fighting and playing games. There wasn't a single soul in the house. Next morning, he wakes up and is already impressed that none of this was a dream. Ryu says he's impressed that a noble like Zed can sleep in a place like this. Zed asks Sin if he likes this place and his friend just says something obvious, right, bro? There's no such thing as liking when you're poor. You sleep wherever you can. Even though our boy hijacked this guy's life halfway through, he was also super rich in his previous life. And like a good capitalist bro, he gets up and says it's time to make money. You can't level up and get strong if you don't even have a place to sleep or eat. Ryu says that's going to be really hard, but definitely being hunted by Clark and soon enough they'll be found. Zed asks if he's talking about stealing, but our boy says that's impossible. There's no way to steal enough to get rich in a place like this. First, they'd have to make money in a fair and honest way. In other words, the arena, right, boys? And there we are in the underground arena where sand flies and it's face to face, forehead to forehead. Look at that smug little grin. If there's one place he feels at home, it's right there. And now that I realize it, doesn't this dude kind of look like a male NASA from Attack on Titan? Little scarf, that black hair, like it's Picasso. Incredible. And there they are, bro. In the crowd in the madness of the fights. Rue of course already says he must be thinking something weird because this must be the wrong place. But the madman says, no way. This place is perfect. Man, the guy's biting someone's shoulder. But then Bam gets cannon punched in the mouth. It's pure brawling. No rules here, bro punches to the ribs, bites wherever you can get him. It's chaos. The crowd's cheering, loving it. While Ryu is horrified, our boy is celebrating. The fight level was better than he expected. He thought it'd be a bunch of amateurs, but turns out they're not so bad after all. Then Walmart Euro Hammer comes running in and lands a solid one on the big guy. The guy suffers for a second. Actually, more than a second because he gets hit with a whole combo. Ri is freaked out, telling Zed to rethink Fizz. But then he noticed his friend had disappeared. Everyone in the audience is panicking. Bro, Hammer has blood on his hands. But look who's standing there holding his arm. It's Masa. Wait, I mean Zed telling him to go a little easier. Walmart Yujiro is standing there confused, bro. Of course, Ryu already thinks the guy lost his mind. And the girls in the crowd think this is the modern world, asking the ref if he got paid to let someone die. Yujiro rips his arm out of Zed's grip, asking if he's some kind of noble and if he has a death wish. But man, Zed says absolutely not. They should be able to tell just by looking. He's just some street kid. Then the crowd gets mad, telling Yujiro to beat up the brat who's interrupting the fight. Zed says that's fine. Then he'll take responsibility with a fight that'll entertain everyone. Obviously, Ryu doesn't think it's a good idea and starts going off ranting a million things in Zed's ear. But Zed tells him to calm down, saying all this friend needs to do is bet everything he has on him for this fight. Ryu doesn't want to. But Zed tells him to remember, bro, that meat they ate was way too good. So after this fight, they're going to have another banquet. There he is face to face. The other guy says he admires the kid for being crazy in the head. At least he doesn't look scared. But then something catches his attention. The kid's stance was active. His breathing seemed steady, and he was staring at him with a killer aura. Clearly, his posture was better than anyone else he'd ever seen in that ring. Suddenly, it's Yujiro who's shaking, telling himself it's impossible he's this scared of a kid. He decides to rush in, saying, none of this makes sense. But he's immediately met with a cannon punch to the cheek. And boom, the nose faucet turns on. And Zed even plays the coach, telling the guy, you never start a fight throwing a punch behind the shoulder. He already starts throwing a combo at the poor guy who's trying to dodge, but keeps getting popped right in the jaw. Our boy explains that you always keep your arm forward. It serves both for defense and offense. Poor Yujiro is eating a full face of machine gun punches. Zinchas keeps that arm forward, defense, and attack. Yujiro's face is getting all swollen up while Ryu has his eyes shut praying and he slowly opens them just in time to see the poor fool already kneeling in the dirt. Meanwhile, Maso's over there all smug smiles. Hub bro Ryu can't believe it, but I don't know how he can't believe it. Did he not see Zed beat down a prison full of people? Poor Yujiro man. He's trying to open his eyes, seeing blurry shapes. He can't believe he's about to lose to a kid like this right in front of everyone. He tries one last punch, but Zed dodges with ease and goes full beat down again. One last clean hit right in the middle of the pit and he falls flat on his back. Our boy already turns to the ref and tells him to call the match. He won. But right, bro. This is a betting house. And the guy knows if he declares Zed the winner, a lot of people are going to be mad. But he doesn't really have much choice. Euro is not getting up. So that's it. Zed's declared the winner. Obviously, the smug one says the fight wasn't even enough for a warm-up. Sometime later, with a bag of coins in hand, he asks his friend why there's only this much. In theory, it was 60 people betting against him and only one in favor. The betting guy says the calculation is correct. He followed the exact process. Zed insists. With the amount that was bet, it should have been way more. He calls for Ryu and just by the look on his face, it's clear he didn't bet everything on bro. Right then, someone tall approaches. Long blue hair walking up and we can already see the storyteller's talent. Huh. Little red dress. Only problem is she's got a villain face. Like no way she's going to be a friend to our boy. She's clearly going to bring nothing but trouble. She walks up saying she wants to have a little chat, but he just asks, "Who are you, man?" The world's not even modern. But this one's already got filler done. Look at the size of that lower lip. She says that for him not to know who she is. This must be his first time here. He's the owner of the arena known as Hera. But Zeta already walks past her saying it's good to know, but he's not in the mood for talking. Rue is already noticing this is not going to end well and two gigantic guys bro already blocked the way like a wall in front of our boy and boldly he looks 90 degrees up and asks if everyone wants to end up on the ground. The iron jaw dudes are all confused thinking the kid's gone completely crazy from behind. Hera says that the warrior he defeated was brought in from the big city. He needs to understand what that means. She will let him go today but he can be sure they'll meet again somewhere much more relaxing. Oh boy. This one's dangerous. She plays this kind of dangerous game. Run, boy. And she says she really likes very strong boys. Yikes. Looks like he slipped away just fine though because there we are the next day at a bar and R's exhausted saying that Zed's crazy in the head for acting that confident in front of that woman. He has to understand she runs that whole place. Our boy though says she just seems like an old fox addicted to money. Ryu says he's right about that. She is known as the fox around here. Meaning she probably tried to get close to him to gain some kind of advantage. But man, it's not the first time Zed's been seen as a genius. As soon as he started getting famous and winning a bunch of fights, a million calls started coming in. Everyone offers contracts and endless options. Back then, he was a bit more naive and got scammed several times. But by sheer luck, he found his manager, the one who made him a champion. Obviously, all of that taught him very clearly what it takes to reach the top. Since he called her an old fox for her wisdom, soon they'd find out who was really wiser. The fancy meat they ordered is served. Ryu already wants to dig in, but our boy tells him to wait. Clearly, they were being scammed. This was far from the quality they'd ordered. This wasn't that ultra-rare steak. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to serve it to everyone in the bar. Rue says, "Whatever. I'm hungry." Once the steak hits your belly, it's all the same. But Zed says, if they paid for a birdie steak, that's exactly what they're going to get. He calls over one of the waiters who immediately says if he's going to complain, he better leave because no one likes his presence there. Zed completely ignores what the guy said and just says, "This steak is fake. You'd better bring the real one before complaining about me." The waiter asks if he's lost his mind. Our boy tells him to call the boss, and now the guy is certain this street kid is nuts, but he says fine if he really wants to meet the boss and follow him. Obviously, this doesn't lead anywhere good. Inside the boss's office is a fat guy and a bunch of goons already pointing knives at the door. The guy asks if he's the customer causing trouble, to which Zed just replies that the ones causing trouble are the people selling fake stuff in this place. The fat guy sends the first goon forward, saying the kid doesn't understand the situation he's in. But Zen's already smiling. Another little fight for him to enjoy. The bar guys, poor things, all Russian just to get smacked in the face like always. Another one gets his arm broken, then hits the neck of one, dodges another, lands a clean shot, and throws the guy on his back. The fat boss who was celebrating at first is already starting to see the situation turning bad for him. The whole group is lying on the floor with something broken and Zed is standing in the middle of them all. Ryu tells them to be careful that this is the kid who took down Walmart URO and apparently the fat guy had heard a similar story but thought it was just a rumor. Navi wants to know what Zed wants. The boys approach and say he's actually quite reasonable. First, they'll give back the money he paid. Second, they'll pay for the steak he ate at the price of the real birdie steak. The fat guy screams, saying they're just a bunch of little crooks. But he's probably screwed, huh, bro? Because Mike falls and Ryu's in bed, all happy, celebrating and saying he's never slept in a place this soft. He then turns over and praises our boy, saying he really is amazing, as expected of a noble from a powerful family. Zen says, "It's easy to negotiate when you have power, right, bro?" And with that, another night falls. As always, men are there with that peculiar look on his face in the middle of the night out of nowhere. Suddenly, he gets up and calls for Zed. He asks if he's ready. Our boy doesn't answer. So Ryu gets up and leaves, but obviously right man, Zed was awake the whole time and saw the whole thing. A few days pass. Ryu walks into the room saying he's starving. He wants to know what time they're going out to eat. Zed as always has been training all day. Ryu asks how it's possible for him not to take even a single break. The protagonist stands up and takes a look at his stats. He says, unfortunately, they're not going up anymore. No matter how much he trains or checks, man is still stuck at 0. Maybe it's because he's going from nothing to 1, right? That's the hardest part. It's taking a bit longer. He turns to Ryu saying training is over and it's time for them to go get a steak for breakfast. It's been 3 days since they last went, giving the guys a chance to recover because the last few times they went, they ate 10 portions, and in the end, the staff had to pay them. Then Zed asks Ryu how many coins they still have. He replies that they're almost out because the cost of living in this city is crazy high. Zed says he understands, but man, the truth is this is a game he played for 10 years. He knows the economy very well. 50 gold coins, what they earned, it's not the kind of thing you burn through in a couple days like that. Maybe Ryu thinks he's an idiot, just a noble who doesn't understand how the world works. And now Zed wants to know, is it greed? What's he hiding? Or does he have some kind of addiction? For now, he'll keep pretending he hasn't noticed anything because he hasn't seen any sign of betrayal. But eventually, he's going to need to understand why. Already at the bar. One of the guys opens the door and tells the boss that they're here. And this time, they've got a plan, man. He tells the guy to make sure everyone's ready. As soon as our boy shows up, he's welcome at the candlelight banquet. The waiter says he hopes our boy feels at home. Obviously, Zed already finds this weird and wants to know why they're being so friendly out of nowhere. The moment they walked in, he looked around, didn't spot any assassins. The restaurant looked the same as always. Interrupting his thoughts, Ryu wrapped a bit of meat and lettuce and told him to take a bite. Our boy grabbed his hand and said, "All right, Hidi." But he keep an eye on everything around them. But obviously, as soon as he bites it, he feels something off and tells Ryu to spit it out. He throws out immediately, of course, wanting to know what kind of poison nonsense this is. Zed says the amount is small. It's not going to kill them, but something's clearly going on. He opens up his status screen and now understands why the staff was being so friendly. Obviously, with absolute poison resistance, nothing happens to him. But the problem is that after eating a lot, he'd eventually die just the same. Ryu wants to know if he's really sure it's poison. He didn't smell anything, didn't notice anything, so why can't they eat it? Then just says it's because he's an errand just to change the subject, which makes Ryu mad. He says, so it's like that. This snob really is on a different level. That's when the protagonist smiles, saying, it's time to make these guys pay for trying something like that. Sometime later, the boss shows up clearly pissed, wanting to know what the kids want with him. Zed is sitting at the back of the table and says he's just curious and had a few questions. But the boss notices that all the plates are empty, so they ate it all and the poison should kick in any second. But then he says he's not here to answer anything. He's not going to talk to people who just want to extort money from him. Zed says that as he can see, the boss is completely misunderstanding the situation. He tells Ryu to give their friend a bit of meat so they can talk over a meal. Obviously, Ryu hands over that meat roll that's probably been in his hand for like 40 minutes. And the fat guy is just standing there, right, wanting to know why they're offering something like that. Our boy says it's a peace offering. If the guy accepts eating it, then he'll accept any condition afterward. The boss says he's not interested. He has no intention of making peace with the kid. Zed wants to know if maybe the guy just really loves giving him money or if there's another reason he doesn't want to eat that, like say if it were poisoned. The chubby guy stutters trying to reply and Zed already says he messed up thinking he was going to walk out of this easily. He kicks the table and all the meat they were supposed to eat hits the floor. Zed says he'd been going easy, but trash like him really does enjoy suffering, huh? Even so, the fat guy slaps the wall, saying there's no poison, and if they show any proof, he'll admit it. Our boy goes for his eye and removes the contact lens, saying that is all the proof he needs. Upon seeing the red eye, the guy knows immediately he's an Eren. He falls on his butt, totally scared, afraid he's going to die. In just a second, he's already on his knees, begging for forgiveness, saying he didn't realize he was a noble. The guy's sobbing, desperate, wanting to know why a kid from a family like that is wandering around pretending to be a beggar. At that moment, Zed realized something. The Arahan name held way more power than he imagined. He asks if the fat guy will do anything, he says, to which the man replies, yes. Zed says his first condition is that he can't tell anyone about his identity. The guy agrees. Then Zed gives the second condition. He has to hand over half of all his money. And in return, Zed will act like none of this ever happened. Apparently, the Eren family is really dangerous because I thought the fat guy was going to say, that's too much. But nope, he just agrees and says he's going to get it right away. He runs out saying he better hand it over quickly before the kid changes his mind. Zed puts the lenses back in and repraises him, saying that his name really scared the guy. He didn't even have the guts to say anything. But Zed already warns that this will be their last night in this city. But look who walks in just at that moment, wanting to know what the rush is all about. The two of them turn to see Herna walk in with arms crossed, saying they finally met again. She praises our boy, saying he's even more impressive than she imagined. Now Zed's hesitating, not sure if she found out he belongs to the Arahan family. It wouldn't make sense. And he sees the fat guy shaking his head. No back and forth, so that probably isn't the case, which means maybe she got some info from the prison. If the fat guy finds out he's an abandoned era, the deal will be off. So he has to wrap this up quickly. He says fine, he'll accept a private conversation with her. Now face to face at the table, he asks why she's here or why she's been looking for him. Herna tilts her head to the side and says he's misunderstanding again. She didn't come here for him. She had a meeting with a client there. At that moment, Zed realizes that the client is Ryu, who apologizes for doing something like that. Hera says she's sorry, but unfortunately, she still hasn't been able to fulfill her side of the deal. Ryu stands up angrily saying that's not what they agreed to and that he's already paid a lot of money. But Herna says it's impossible to find someone who disappeared that long ago. They could be alive or dead. Zed finally realizes what's going on and says they'll settle this a different way since she wants to negotiate with him. Then she'll be negotiating with both of them. In other words, our boy will help her if she solves Ryu's problem first. Herna thanks him and says her request is going to be real simple. All she wants is for him to fight Walmart Euro one more time. Ryu says it's clearly a trap, but right then and Zed already accepts it. Bro lip filler face is already reminiscing, saying not to worry, she'll hold up her end of the deal. Sometime later, they're walking back through the streets and Ryu's, they're holding a little coin pouch. Zed asks why he's making that face. They made a ton of money. But Ryu's is apologizing, saying he didn't want to hide things from him from the start. Since she knows the city and everyone who passes through it, he figured she'd be a good source of info. But yeah, I should have told Zed beforehand. Zed says it's fine. Besides, he knew from the beginning that Ryu was stealing money. Ryu is a little shocked he knew, but Sen says just so he doesn't feel too bad. He only just figured out that the money was going to Herna. Ryu wants to know why he didn't say anything. And our boy just says it's because he doesn't care. The help Ryu had been giving was worth more than those coins. But he does say he doesn't let things slide like that all the time. From now on, Ryu better not hide anything else. No matter where he was born, he can't act like garbage. But Ryu's already teary-eyed, apologizing, swearing he'll never do it again. Even so, he begs our boy not to join the fight. They could just take the money and vanish from this place. Zed asks, how's he going to get info about his brother if they run away now? To which Ryu says, he already figured it out. That woman's going to scam him again. Z thinks about it. Ryu's not an idiot, so it's clear that him going to him meant he was desperate. He knew it was a bad offer. Knew the chances were low, but he had no other choice. Meanwhile, Dan Herna was the type to take advantage of desperate kids and leave them behind. And yeah, he admits he wanted to run away, too. But he changed his mind. Ryu begs him to drop it. Obviously, he trusts Zed's skills now, but even so, Hern is definitely going to rig something, but Zed just says that's exactly why he wants to fight. Nothing better than cleaning up trash that's in your way. He's sure she's gone all out prepping this guy. Every cheat possible. All to make Zed lose, which makes it perfect. Meanwhile, back at the prison, man, I almost forgot about these guys. They're still out hunting for our boy. One of them comes to report to Clark that all the troops are ready. He slams the table, saying, now they're finally going to take out that damn rat that's been hiding right under their nose. From today, that damn Aaron doesn't leave alive.
What will happen next? To find out, do like, share and subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching. Sayonara.